we looked up the person's name, and then we used the GOP data center to find out what their, in fact, our GOP data center, and you guys are gonna have the keys to this when you leave today, we not only can look up and see if they're a Republican or a Democrat, we can tell if they're registered as unaffiliated, we can tell what their modeled party, I wouldn't say modeled, but their
that's what they call it,
modeled, yeah, it's what their modeled party is. So they can't hide from us. And so next to the U, you'll see right there, I have a hard R next to Matt Streisand, but lo and behold, Tatum Tunyes was a hard Democrat. And so she's registered unaffiliated. Now we kind of knew that about her because she used to be a Democrat and she changed her affiliation to run for city council because she knew she couldn't win as a Democrat. But our mayor's a Democrat and he invited her to run, so there you go. We got a Democrat, slipped through and got onto our city council. So anyway, 2 years ago, our county party did not have a handle on who are all these elected officials. And in my opinion, every Republican elected official in your county should be a delegate to your convention. That should be a goal, is to get them plugged into the party, invited, and they should be county delegates. I'm going to jump around a little, but I do just want to kind of go through. So I put their name, and then when they were up for re-election. When they first started in office is good to know, because some of these people have been there a long time, and it's good for us to know when they first came on. We keep track of obviously their term length, how long they're going to be in office, so we can flag when they're up for re-election. And then we took great pains in researching to get work cell phones, personal cell phones, email addresses, and until they tell me to remove them, they're on my county email list, and they get information from us every time I post. You know, they get an email from us, and I've not had one yet say remove me from your list. So that's been kind of cool. So we keep a track. So if they have a campaign website, we have their home addresses, and so we went to great pain to get to know every single one of these folks. And so then, as a county chair, it's my job to go meet these people, shake hands with them. And this brings me to a very important point. If you're like me, a lot of the decisions about who's going to run for office are made at a level that doesn't involve you. And a lot of times, I'm not trying to throw shade on a chamber, but what I'm going to tell you is the Chamber of Commerce, all those members, the mayor, the bank president, the hospital president, you know, these folks are having conversations above our heads, and they kind of say, well, I know her or I know him, he's a really good guy. And again, I'm not throwing shade because they're basically electing and or encouraging their friends to run. But we're living in a new era now, right? Like, we're we the people. And so we the people and you the people of your county have to decide, do we the people want to bring the candidates? Because we know and we have a lot of smart people. Or do we just want to sit and wait for the same people to elect their friends and pull their folks into it? And so this is why that word relevant comes back into play. Because right now, my county party is not relevant in a lot of the discussions that are going on at the Chamber of Commerce and with the mayor. So our job is to become relevant. And how do we do that? Well, this is where I'm talking about these basic steps. And the first thing you have to do is you need to find out who your people are, and then you need to go meet them and talk to them and start engaging with them. And it might be awkward at first because, again, some of these people might think you're just a crazy tinfoil hat wearing, ultra mega, patriot dude, and they don't want to talk to you. But if you guys, I think you'll admit that when you talk to people face to face and in person, a lot of times they realize, like, oh, you're not such bad, you don't sound all that crazy to me, you seem pretty normal to me. And then they soften a little bit. And then maybe next month they'll come to coffee. And so we really need to start reaching out and getting to know these officials. So the first step is finding, I don't know about your county, but we have a crazy number of, because I think we have like 10 different school boards that we vote for, and that's what a lot of county parties don't understand, is that your county might be split between 2 NRD districts. I know a lot of you up north are not, but like I had a whole slice of the east edge of Seward County that goes to Lower Platte South. I had no idea. I sent out a slate card for election day, and it wasn't on the slate card because I didn't even realize I had this slice of Seward that was the wrong, that was another NRD. I thought we were just Big Blue, and it's like, oh, we're Lower Platte South too. Did that happen to you? Or are you raising your hand?
Well, but I on that topic, I found that in doing the spreadsheet, a map that shows those NRD districts or school districts, and you can just copy and paste those and stick those in a cell.
Yes, out of our maps folder.
That way you can.
Yes, that's awesome. And then you don't miss them. Yes. And so finding out who these folks are, I broke mine into city and village boards, boards of education, of course, and then we've got all the schools. So again, every county is so different, so I don't want to focus too much on my county, just knowing that we have to account for, we want to be in touch with every race that all of our citizens are voting for, okay? Not just the cities, but even out in the outer parts of the county. So, and then our county offices, I don't know about you guys, but is that a thing across the whole state? The counties are always the even years for you? Is that going on? All your county offices are up for re-election in 26? Okay, yeah. And so we have a lot of ours here, but we have 4 specific races that we've got issues. And so we're gonna be discussing candidate recruitment for a couple of these. And so, but until you get it all down, okay, here's the airport authority. If you don't have an airport in your city, then you probably don't have that. And then we do the regional and state just for our own party's information. And then right now I've got my NRD stuff on this regional page, but I'm going to break it out and have it be its own tab. But you see I've got my natural resources folks on there. But who knew? Who knew that this many people get elected? I'm new to politics. I didn't realize it. I'm like, dang, that's a lot of elected people right there. And you can see we're thank God, we're pretty red out there. But there's some folks that have been around. We have an 85-year-old Republican. I won't mention the name, but she's been there a very, very long time, and she models out as a hard Democrat. And she's been sitting there on the NRD for, many, many, many years. And, those are potential targets, okay? So after you get the list done and you know who is the elected official in your county, then we can extrapolate. Now I've reduced it down to just the 26 races. But that's not the last step, right? So now I know who's up for re-election. That's this whole tab is just who's up for re-election. Look how many races we have to be thinking about. And you see I've got some D's, guys. It is Seward County, right on the edge of Lancaster. Again, thank God we're still mostly red, but this is what it's starting to happen. Like, we're getting more Democrats, because that's the Democrat strategy, is to get in those down ballot races, get on the NRD boards, get on the city councils, get into the school boards, and they start infiltrating and they come up through. So the next step, which I have taken, is I have contacted my political advisors. And so I say, okay, guys, we have to have a political advisory committee, and we need to sit down and talk about these different races and who are we going to target, if any. Again, just because somebody has a D next to their name doesn't automatically mean, bam, we're going to go after them. It could be a Kennedy Democrat from 20 years ago that just never changed their affiliation. You have to get to know these people and make sure, so we don't make fools of ourselves and make enemies in town because you're trying to oust the vet that's been serving the community for the past 50 years, and he just never changed but he's conservative as can be. So we have to be smart about it too. And again, to be respected and to be relevant, we have to be educated. So now I'm going to think to myself, maybe, I've got my echo chamber in my current party of my 19 county central committee members, but there's some very conservative Republicans outside of my party who maybe haven't warmed up to my county party yet, but they might be very interested in talking with me about some of these races because of the political nature. We've got some issues I'm not going to get into the issues, but so my goal is, I've already made some phone calls and I'm inviting some of these folks to come be on my advisory board. So now they can safely, behind the scenes, come and look at these races with me and say, okay, listen, yeah, we got a problem over here, but she's pretty good. I probably would, So now I've invited someone to the table, and I've got 2 or 3 guys right now that are not part of our party. And one guy said, well, I'm not going to show up in any of your group meetings, but I'll talk to you one-on-one whenever you want to. And so, and by the way, he made a donation to the party, which he hadn't done in years. So being you've got to start being a little more inclusive, and that's, again, it's a strategy to bring more people into the party now, right? And again, back to that chamber conversation. If your county party is not a member of your Chamber of Commerce, you need to fix that immediately. That should be a top priority. I think it's like $90, or maybe, I think ours is like $100 a year. It's very cheap, and then it allows us to be invited to sponsor parade stuff, and we get like radio and newspaper free advertisement as a sponsor of the Christmas parade and all of that through the chamber. So again, become relevant with the chamber by joining the chamber. And you know, even if you have 5 people on your board, you guys could all pitch in $25 or $20 and become a member of your Chamber of Commerce as the county party. All right, so that was one idea. I challenged the counties to produce this document, and then I want you to turn it back into the state so that we can get an accurate count of how many Democrats do you really have. Because you know how the Dems want to say, oh, we have this many seats, and they're always quoting these numbers, but we'd like to know really how many we have. So reporting and sharing this sheet back to us is important. Thank you to Madison County, because Danna Seevers was the first person to just jump right on this homework assignment. And I haven't seen your final product yet, but I'm gonna ask you to share it back. Yeah, share it back, and then we're gonna upload it as a shining example. And then I have another county, I can't think of who it is right now, but somebody said, well, I can't do that fancy spreadsheet, I'll just write it all out. And so I said, that's fine, I'll upload it for you. So whether it's handwritten out on a sheet or it's on the spreadsheet, that's fine either way. So does anyone have any questions about that first step of elected official research? Go ahead.
So I'm working on my counties.
Okay.
Slow process.
You got the homework assignment.
I don't really know where to look. I'm sure you're going to kind of go more into that. But how do I figure out how far back these people were elected? Because I'm looking at the Secretary of State website and finding, okay, this is the election results of this, this, and this, or I guess my county clerk website, and it goes back to 2008 or something like that. And I see you have like 1995 up there. Like I'm assuming you're probably going to have more resources for that.
But yeah, to ask that question. It's a great question.
Yeah. So like, where do you find that?
So mostly we got that information by walking into the clerk's office. And she's been there for 40 years, and she knows the numbers right off the top of her head. So we can either walk in and get it from the clerk's office, or better yet, call the candidate, or call the person and just say, hey, and this is an opportunity for you to introduce yourself from the Republican Party. We're doing some political research in the county. I noticed you've been elected around a long time. And if maybe you want to maybe you don't have their email, you need that too. A lot of these emails were hard to find because for some strange reason, our village board members don't like telling people their email addresses. Imagine that. They're elected officials hired to represent the people, but they don't want their email or their cell phone numbers getting out to anybody. So we really had a challenge. And school board kind of the same way. But even with the school boards, we called the superintendent of schools, and a lot of times we were able to get everything we needed right from the superintendent. Not a problem. Even the secretary of the superintendent would just give us, the individual phone numbers and emails that we needed. But as far as like when they first came into office, I would either call the candidate or lean on your county clerk, because she should have all that information. Okay, any other questions about that? It's a great question.
Yeah.
Okay, so how many of you, I know, so Butler's working on it. Is anybody else started down that path to get that list? Colfax County, or Stanton County. Good, awesome. Yeah, it's overwhelming, right?
Well,
and
this is what they told me. I got a printout, 59 pages, but I didn't print them all, of Republican voters in Stanton County. But the clerk was friendly with me. Said, well, now. But the clerk told me that if I wanted data like this, it's going to cost me 2 cents per individual for every voter in the county. And I said, well, Wanda, how many voted? She said, well, it's under 3,000 now. We cleaned our rolls out really good. And I said, well, I think we have that much in our treasury.
Okay, so I need to interject here. So Miss Wanda is unfortunately not correct. You as a county chair have a statutory right to have a copy of the current voter roll anytime you want it. Whether it is an election year or not an election year, as the county chair, it is in our Nebraska law that they have to provide that to you for free. And there's a list of all of the data points that you are allowed to have listed in the statute. So
it's actually right there. I can just
phone numbers, addresses, and for a long time, and I hear this all across the state, they say, well, you have to pay for it. No, you don't. I got into a huge fight up in Cumming County with somebody because they said, no, they charge us here. And I'm like, no, that was, you remember this, right? It got a little bit contentious because I knew I was right, but I wasn't gonna sit there and go to the mat, so I had to walk away and be like, okay, I'm just gonna calm down. And I actually walked into the SOS office, the Secretary of State's office, and I said, I need to see this. You got to show me where it is in the statute because I couldn't find it actually. So I learned that as a county chair, any time of the year, doesn't matter. The list is free to you. Now, I will tell you, okay, hold your thought. That list is just a snapshot in time. So while it's great to have, it's not the greatest, okay? And we have the keys to a list that provides the same data. It might be 45 to 60 days behind, but it gets updated on a regular basis. And so you can,
through your program, then we can get
yes,
that one instead
yes,
of, yeah, I don't want to do battle with her.
yeah.
So-
If I don't have to.
GOP data center, which Danna is going to talk
That's
about,
coming
and
next.
Numenar, who we use to do door knocking, same data is in there,
Okay.
and it's
Yes.
free
And
for
see,
you guys as county chairs and.
Yes, the county chairs submit their data of their registration up to the Secretary of State, and then the Secretary of State submits their data up to the RNC or to the data trust. I'm not even sure. I think the RNC gets it eventually, but that's why there's that lag. So if you're needing, like if you have a candidate that's ready to go knock doors, then yes, I recommend going down and getting the list from the clerk and then uploading it into Numenar so that when you go door knock, it's the most current. But if you're just looking for like research data to send a mailer out to invite people to an event, the GOP data center is fantastic. And I'm gonna show you guys how to use it. Okay, what was your question?
And I know with like the 2-cent thing, you can also find turnout. So like they've gone to the last 4 or 6 primaries or whatever. Is that
Yes.
the same
That's all
thing?
in GOP data center.
That's
and that's
in
all?
GOP
Okay.
data center as well, but that's also available to you for free. Okay, if you look in the statute, there's a list of like 9 things that they must give you by law if you ask for it as a chair, and for voter frequency is on that list. Yes, yeah. So don't ever pay money again to your clerk for that
I didn't
list.
give her any.
Good. All right.
I was like, you know what, I'm going to a meeting this weekend, we'll find that out, we'll check that out. I'm glad I waited. If
Well-
I didn't get another thing out of this meeting, that was worth it.
I know, right? It's like if nothing else across this state, I'll save people so much money.
It's 2 newspaper ads we can buy.
Yes, yes. Speaking of saving money, I'm going to jump completely off schedule, but if you're supporting a local candidate, and I'm talking down ballot, okay? The higher races usually hire a consultant, so your legislative district for senator, a lot of times your board of education, those guys are hiring consultants. But if you've got a down ballot race with a school board member, city council, county commissioner, you can actually tap into the state's bulk rate postage. And so the cost to them to mail things is significantly lower when we use the state party's bulk rate postage. And I practiced this for the 24 election cycle with a county commissioner and also with even a village board. See, we leveled up because I don't think anybody in the history of Utica had ever actually put signs out and did mailers through the mail. But we've got this down to a science now, and so I know all the steps to qualify to do that, and I know legally what it has to show on your mailer for it to be legal, because there's some things you can get in big trouble if you don't have the paid for by correctly. But instead of spending 40 or 60 cents a mailer, your candidates can be spending like 18 cents, 20 cents to mail things out. In some of these small counties where there's not that many people, you can get a lot of bang for your buck with some mailers in the mail. So just tuck that away in your head, and I'll show you the where you can get more info on all this. Okay, so we are going to jump over. Should I do data center first and then resource drive, or I think I'm gonna do data center first, since we're kind of heading that way anyway. Okay, so we're gonna hop over. Anyone who is a exec board member, okay, county chair, vice chair, secretary, or treasurer, you guys have the ability to get a login. Now, if your chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer is not super tech savvy, that's okay. As long as the chair approves of the person who's getting the credentials, then I will give them login credentials. So it's up to the chair ultimately who gets the keys into the database. But I will give the keys to any chair, vice chair, secretary, or treasurer. One thing I'd like you to know about this resource, and again, I'm trying not to throw shade on the past, but I do just want, sometimes it's good for you to know things so that you can appreciate more what you have now. I flew out to Ohio for an RNC workshop where they taught us how to use this database, and I was so blown away. And I finally raised my hand and I said, this is amazing. Like, I've never heard of this before, and my senator's never heard of it either, and the senator before her had never heard of it either. And I said, when did this get rolled out? The RNC told me that this database was rolled out to the state parties in 2013. And so since 2013, we have had the ability to, and it was designed and intended to be pushed all the way down to the county parties. But that didn't happen in Nebraska. And don't feel special, because there's other states that same thing. It sort of got stuck at the federal race level in the big cities. It was like Omaha, Lancaster, Sarpy, Douglas, that's where it got stuck. It didn't ever get pushed out, but I need you to know it was intended to, okay? And so when I left that building, I was on a mission. I said, you know what? Every single person in the state of Nebraska who is part of the county parties needs to know about the data center. And if any of you are already in here, you know. So we have a process, because this is proprietary information and not anybody can be logging in here. So we have what's called a data access agreement that you must sign before you can come in. And we expire your credentials at the end of every election cycle, just to clean people out. And it also forces consultants to refile with us so we know what candidates they're representing. But this has just been such a handy tool for my county. So let me show you a little bit how it works. So you're gonna log in, and this is gonna be the first thing you're gonna see. Probably the number one thing that I use it for, like on the daily, is if you look up here, and can you guys see okay at the top there? Can you see that where it says find a voter? So I'll just click on find a voter, and I go in and you just put their first name and last name. And if you're not sure how to spell it, put the first three letters that you know are for sure, and maybe at the last name, same thing, and it'll bring up everybody that's even close. And so then if you want to like narrow it by the city, you can even put in the city, because if it's a common name, you'll have like hundreds of the same name. But my name's not that common, so I don't need to put in the city. So anyway, I just punch in my name, and then I hit the enter button, and it brings up Danna Seevers. And just in this first glance, you get my birth date, so you know how old I am. You get my official party, what my official filing is. And then if you, so pretend this is an index card. If you tap on it, it's like, imagine an index card flipping over and giving you more information. So we're gonna click on this card, and now it expands into more information. So it has my phone numbers. So I've got my home phone and my cell phone. And then if you keep on scrolling down, it's got my home address, which that I think was on the front too. It has other registered voters that are in my household. I have 5 kids, but the three are gone, so I only have 2 registered voters. Actually, she's gone now too. Anyway, it tells you when I registered to become a voter. And then it tells it, so then it gives you my calculated party. Okay, so this is kind of fun because sometimes, like I said, people might be a Democrat or they might be unaffiliated and you're like, what? And so it's one question I always get is, well, how do they calculate it? So every credit card purchase you make, every organization that you join, every speech that you give, every office that you run for, all of that is collected data. And there's something in our country called, a company called the Data Trust. And the Data Trust mines for information and collects information on all of us. So if you're a member of Pheasants Forever and you happen to be a member of the Nebraska Firearms Owners Association, it's probably pretty clear that you're a pretty conservative person. So that gets you points in that hard versus soft versus weak category. And so, and if you're constantly buying, hunting gear, from Cabela's and different things, those companies sell your data. So the Data Trust mines the data and then they sell it out to all the different organizations that have a desire to know that. And I don't know if any of you know this, but in 2016, or was it 20? When was the election that Trump dumped all those millions and bought all that data and infused this? You remember 16 or 20? I think in 20, Trump invested millions of dollars into the RNC to up-level our data collection. So the RNC data, which is what this is, the GOP data center, this is through the Republican National Committee. This is currently the best data that's in the country. We are way above the Dems on this because the Dems do not have as high tech of a system, supposedly. Like we're edging ahead of them on data. Okay, so that just gives you a little behind the scenes information. So this stuff can be pretty accurate. It's not always accurate. I will tell you the phone number stuff is kind of sucky, but and I'll tell you down here it'll have reliability. So if you see TRC, that's a telephone reliability code. And so depending on what the letter is, it used to be in numbers. Oh, and by the way, if it says do not call, are you all aware that does not apply to politics? If somebody puts themselves on the do not call list, you're still legally allowed to call them. Politics do not count. So I am on the do not call list, but you can still call me. Okay.
Not that anybody pays attention to it.
I know. Okay, now here's probably the most valuable thing about this section, or about this back of this card. If you go down to district info, how many times have someone called you as a chair and said, I don't know which candidate I'm even supposed to be looking at. And so this is a fast way to come in here and know if that person, who's their public service commissioner, which county board do they vote for, which school board do they vote for, board of regents, state board of education, community college district. This makes you really handy and valuable, right? And I get calls all the time, and they just don't know. And even when we're profiling people and we say, well, I need to find 2 more people in this precinct so that I have full representation in all my precincts. So I pull their name up and say, no, she's in the wrong precinct. So it'll have their voting precinct numbers even. This tells you all the elections that they have voted in. Now, because we are a nonpartisan legislature or whatever, they don't do colors in Nebraska. All the other states get to have a blue and a red for what they voted, but ours just stay gray. So you'll see, that they're gray. And so then it tells you my voter frequency. 4 out of 4 of the last, I get a 4 out of 4 overall, 4 out of 4 in the last generals, and 3 out of 4 in the last primaries. Of the last 3 primaries. And then you'll see some tagging for some different data, modeled sportsmen. I don't really use a lot of these high-tech variables. That's the smart people, when they start doing stuff with the data in the big races, they start narrowing down. But you can see, I get points for being a sportsman, married, suburban. I'm not union, so I don't know why that's in there. Crime is important to me. Let's see, fixing the economy. So even when you answer surveys, right, that data gets all sucked in, and we can really know a lot about you. Okay, so that's kind of step 1 of this GOP data center is, and I'll tell you what, when you start a Facebook group, which I highly recommend you do if you don't already have one, I recommend that everybody have a Facebook page and a Facebook group. And if you don't know the difference between those 2 things, then you need to have a private meeting with me and I'll help you get it set up. But when you have a Facebook group and somebody makes, and you need to make it private, your group needs to be private. But then people ask to join all the time. And I don't care if it's 2 people today or if it's 12 people today, I will not let them in my group until I go look them up to make sure they're a registered Republican. Don't just be letting people into your Facebook group unless you know that they're registered and that they're Republican. I have Dems all the time trying to break into my Facebook group in Seward, and I'm like, why? Why do you do this? I'm not letting you in. And so that's another thing that you can do. So is there any questions just on that aspect? Go ahead.
Is there any way you can pull up like a district? So how many Republicans are in each district?
Yep. Okay, so here we go. So that was 101. That was 101. Now we're going to go to the next level. So once you are logged in, there's a button here called Tools. And so Tools opens up a new information area where you can run all these cool reports. Now, you can have what are called advanced counts, or you can do basic counts. Don't bother with basic counts. I tell everybody, just don't even worry about this button. This first button, which is advanced counts, this is where the money is, okay? This is the awesome thing. So this allows you to build a list. So the first thing we want to do is to understand that this is a click and drag program. So for example, let's since you asked the question, let's start out our geography. If I click the drop down next to geography, it brings me to all these choices. I can go by county, legislative district, city. I can go into custom geography where you find school board races and county commissioner districts. You can do anything you want. So you pick, what do you want to look up?
Let's do.
You said just county level, or?
Let's do just Butler County.
Butler County. Okay, so we're gonna go county. So I'm gonna go grab the word county and I'm gonna click it and then drag it over into this group. And then we're gonna go find the word Butler. And I click on Butler and say, okay, so now my first search parameter is entered. Now what's the next thing you want to know?
Supervisor district?
No, well, you don't have to go any further on geography.
Okay.
So let's close this. So here are your options. Just that'll help. We can now break it down: precincts, neighborhoods, voter information, voter registration, voter frequency. So you were looking for a list of Republicans, right?
Yeah, so I view Republicans and voter frequency like 204.
Okay, here we go. So let's start with voter info. So we want official party, right? We'll start, so here's the official party. So I'm gonna click it, drag it over, and now it opens up a new window, and we're only looking at Republicans right now. So I'm gonna click Republicans, okay. And if you kind of watch along the right here, you'll kind of see the numbers starting to narrow. Okay, and the next thing he wants is voter frequency, right?
Yeah.
So voter frequency, so do you want, look at all these choices. Yeah, so you can have primary, general, you want primary, right?
Primary.
You said primary. So let's go look up primary frequency. There, sorry. We're gonna click this, drag it over, and then here's your choices. Do you want 1 out of 4, 2 out of 4, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 4?
2 out of 4.
2 out of 4? Okay. So these.
That would only do 2 out of 4, but if you want everything from 0, 1, and 2, you can click all 3 of those options.
Oh, I see.
as well.
So it's like, so I want to do 2, 3, 4.
2, 3, 4.
If I want, yeah.
Right.
Okay, so we'll go 2, 3. So this is, they have voted in 2 out of the last 4 primaries, and 3 and 4. So
And then probably newly registered too.
yes, because if they're 18, 19, 20, you won't even get them in that. That's very smart. Yes, that's a little trick. I had to learn the hard way. I was leaving out the young kids, and I had to go backtrack and do a new list. So we say, okay. All right, so how are we doing? Is that pretty good? Do you want to narrow it down? Now, I will tell you, we have this beautiful button down here called micro targeting, and that's where you can start getting into Hispanics, Caucasians. There's lots of different things that you can start to micro target. Okay, so let's say you've got 1,540 total voters in 1,092 households, right? So now I'm going to export this file. And I'm just, in this, you don't have to memorize all these steps, guys. I will walk you through this, and we will practice until you get this down. Because once you learn it, it's the same thing over and over and over. And it's super fun. Okay, so I'm gonna just do, I'm gonna do a phone list instead of a mailing list. Or do you want a mailing list? Do you want their addresses? Yeah, we'll leave it mailing list, that's fine. Okay, and then I'm gonna come down, I don't mess with tag fields because I'm not smart enough to do tags yet. I'll learn about that someday. But I just go down here and I tell it that I want my list format to be individual voters is a lot of times. Now, if you're doing a mailer, then you're probably gonna go with a household name like, John and Jane or the Smith household. But right now I just want it listed out alphabetically by the individual voter. So I pick individual voter and then I pick by voter alphabetically. And then I'm gonna give my file a name. And so this was Butler,
Mid to high propensity voters.
mid to high, oops, can I do spaces? I don't know if I can't remember if I could do spaces. Let's see, wait, Butler, mid to high. And then we only did ours, right? We did Republicans. All right, so I'm gonna save it as a CSV. I always do the same thing. I never click off of any, I don't pick Excel, I just do CSV, and I don't worry about any of this tag stuff, and I say export now.
The only thing is that the CSV is if you make edits to it, it's not gonna save. Because if you modify the data, it doesn't save. So if you wanna be able to filter and do all that, you wanna save it as an Excel.
Okay, I've never had that issue really. I mean, I've changed data and it still seems to save. But I also give it a new name when I put it into my file, so maybe because I'm copying it.
And break it down and,
Yeah.
label it and put it in a better.
You can resave it that way. I always do Excel. 'cause
So
it's easier.
before this saves, I want to show you. See where it says here, waiting on status? Oh, see, I was trying to show that to you before it completed. It, depending on how big your list is, that thing will be like waiting. So it's done and it's 100% complete. And so now all you have to do is click share, which is download button right here. Click on share. And who would you like to email this to? And if you want it to save for more than just today, you can say to save it, but it won't save for more than 4 days because it would bog down their system. So it's just for today. And then what's your email address?
Luke Ryder 98.
Is it RY?
REI.
I'm sorry.
REITER. At yahoo.com.
Does that look right?
REITER.
Oh, sorry. REI. Let me get back over here. RE. Oops, sorry. I'm sorry. Luke REITER.
Yes.
Okay. I'm challenged by my. Okay, and then the name of this person that I'm sending this document to is Luke. That's all you need, and submit, and that's it. It'll be in your inbox, and then you'll be able to open it up, and then you can filter, you can print, you can upload it into whatever. That's it.
And okay, so say I want to go for a specific district in my county.
Right.
Would I be able to do that through
Yes,
this?
yes.
Okay.
That's back in, so when you go back to that list making, under the tools, I'll pretend we're like doing a new list just to show you real quick. So the advanced counts, that's all this stuff here.
Okay.
So, and when you say a specific district, that's where it's geography. So for example, this one's a little tricky and I always have to explain to people, like if I bring geography, so county commissioners is the one that throws us, right? So I'll put custom districts, I'll bring custom districts over, and now I get to choose which is the race I'm looking for. See how this is sort of the catch-all for all the so that's where I get my school board, state board, public service commissioner, county board. So for you, we would do county board, and then it brings up another list, and I have to go find Butler,
Okay.
supervisor, number 2, or whatever
Yeah.
your district is.
Okay.
See that? Isn't that fun?
That's like so easy.
Right.
And the best part about it too
It's
is,
so easy, I'm like.
No, but you know what? You're a fast learner. I've worked with you already. I know how fast you pick things up.
Well, Trina, you need to learn that.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, I have a lot of respect for some of you folks who are a little older, who are still hanging in there, fighting for your country and fighting for your party. And so no shade on you if this is not your thing. But I'll bet you know somebody in your party who's like, you probably have a child or a grandchild that's good at this stuff. And then you gotta just say, oh, could you help me please? Because I know this great tool is out there, but I don't really know how to use it. And bam, you got somebody else volunteering to help your party. You suck them in, you trick them, bring them in.
so this is a good way too, if you're gonna be doing slate cards, which we hope as many counties as possible can, if you wanna send to all registered Republicans in the county, that's why that mail list is important. You'd have everybody's stuff, and all you gotta do is give that list to your printer, and they'll throw the addresses on your little slate cards, and they'll mail them out for you. That's how you do it, is through this platform. Now, depending on the printer you use, if they're political type printers, they may already be able to get the data. In Omaha, who I worked with for my county and for my school board candidate, I helped with Scott Peterson. He owned Peterson Printing. It's a political specific company, so I didn't need to go do all this because he already has access to the same system.
Yes.
Because it's business, so he just did it for me. But if you're out in more rural and they don't have that data, you download your CSV, send it to your printer along with your design and say, I need it mailed to these people, and they'll do it. So that's how you get your slate cards to all the people in your county that are registered Republicans, or if you're gonna be doing some other type of fundraiser, it's a direct mail
Get out the
fundraiser,
vote,
get out the
local
vote.
densities.
Yep, there's a lot of different ways that you can use the data. Also, Danna will talk about Numenar. Numenar is a platform you can use to do calling to people, and you can do that through the platform. That does cost to do calling, but there's another way, we call it, somebody the other day said it, and it was a funny phrase, so I just used it, but poor man's way. Poor man's way means you can download the list of the numbers for people in the districts and just manually call. People just have to be okay using their cell phone to do it, versus through Numenar, it's a masked phone number. It's not your personal phone number. It's a number that you buy that is associated with your county. So it's not like they call back to your personal cell phone, even though you're making the call from your cell phone. So lots of different ways that this data can be helpful and useful.
Has anybody called out using a Google Voice number?
So it's unfortunate how that works. So like you can't use a Google Voice number for Numenar, but you buy a phone number through them and it works. But you can call through Google Voice on your own. So that would definitely work. Yes. Yep.
So, he brought up a good point about the printers, and again, this is a side note where I want you to highlight and asterisk and star
I
this.
want to open up one of the lists so they can see it.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Let me go.
Because the amount of data you can get is super helpful, and there's that option Danna showed that's walk list. So Numenar is what I recommend you use because that's the actual app that will have dots in your neighborhood of where the Republicans are. But this is still helpful. There's some candidates who are unwilling to use the